Hello everyone, Neaco.Cosplay here. In this video I'm going to talk about making alterations to patterns. When you cosplay, you're gonna need patterns, whether it's for a piece of clothing or a prop you're going to build, you're going to need something to start from. And most of the times you will either make the pattern yourself or start with something that already exists and change it up until you have what you need. You can find some ready-made patterns out there for cosplayers. Some cosplayers sell the patterns that they have made, and some big companies are starting to make more and more patterns specifically for cosplayers. But most of the time, you're still going to need to be creative and make it yourself or start with something and change it up because, yeah, some of those designs out there are crazy. So the reason I'm doing this video is because I have a pattern that I have used so many times. It's a very simple pattern. It's from New Look with the number 6403, and as you can see it's just a very basic pattern, but I have used this for about 16 or 17 costumes, which is a lot. Sometimes you just don't see all the options one pattern has until you have started to work with this. And even though patterns aren't the most expensive thing, it's still better to save a little money when you can just alter a pattern you already own instead of having to buy a new one, especially if you can do that a lot, like for 16 costumes. If I would have to buy a different pattern for every single one of them, yeah, then it will get kind of expensive. But I didn't have to because I just used this one and changed it up, sometimes a little bit, sometimes a lot. In this video I'm going to walk you through all the different alterations that I made to this pattern for all the different costumes that I used it for. So let's just get into it! Let's start this with my Dora cosplay. I just used the B version of the t-shirt pattern with no alterations, simple as that. Then, for both my versions of Astrid from Race to the Edge, I started with the base of the t-shirt pattern. I did not use the sleeves because Astrid does not have any. I changed the neckline to a small V-shape and of course added all the details. For the light blue shirt of Ariel, her town dress, I also started with the base of the t-shirt pattern. The first time I made this costume, I worked with a non-stretchy fabric, so I made the pattern a bit bigger so it would still fit. I did add some armsy darts for a better fit. As for the sleeves, I cut them out wider at the bottom, gathered the bottom and added a cuff to get that poofiness. The second time I made this costume, I used stretch fabric, so I left the base as it was. For the sleeves, I did the exact same thing as before. For my Korra cosplay from book 1, I finally used the pants from this pattern. But let's start with the shirt. Again, I used the base. I added a color and of course some details. As for the pants, I think I made them a bit wider, but I'm not sure anymore. Anyway, I gathered the bottom and added cuffs to make the pants nice and poofy. Then on to Korra from book 4. I again used the pattern for the shirt and the pants. I started by changing the neckline of the shirt, added a stripe in the middle and at the bottom. For the pants, I made the pattern shorter, gathered them at the bottom and added the cuff with the details. For my Horsea Gajinga, I changed the neckline of the shirt and added a piece in the middle, in a different color fabric. I made the pattern a bit shorter and added a skirt from a different pattern. Next, the girl with many eyes. This was very easy. I just made the pattern shorter and added a half circle skirt. I started my genderbend Kristoff cosplay in the exact same way as my girl with many eyes, by making the top shorter and adding a half circle skirt. Kristoff has more details like fur at the bottom of the skirt, a different neckline with a collar and short sleeves. For the sleeves, I started with the pattern that was included and just made them shorter. I forgot to draw the sweater Kristoff has. I just did the exact same thing as I did for my light blue shirt for my Ariel cosplay. I just used the shirt and added some poofy sleeves. My Kurisu cosplay is actually the first time I used this pattern. I just cut the front piece in two, so not on the fold, and made it longer. Then I added the sleeves and all the details. This is the same thing I did for my Merlin cosplay. I also added a collar that I forgot to draw, but at least this time I remembered the shirt. Again, same pattern, just made it longer so it sort of becomes a long shirt dress kind of thing. For Diane, her pink dress, I used this pattern for the second time. I made the shirt longer to turn it into a dress. Then I added a collar and all the lines. For my Zoria costume, I also started by making the shirt longer so it became a dress. Then I added the long sleeves and all the details. For Leone from Akame Kill, I only used the pants. I just cut out a piece in the middle and added a waistband. To make the pants poofy, I gathered them at the bottom and added cuffs. Next up is Katara. I made the t-shirt shorter and changed the neckline. I cut out the front piece twice. For the skirt, I just cut out 2 long pieces of fabric and attached them to the top. And of course, she has short sleeves and a belt. And some other details. For my Diana from season 2, it gets a bit tricky. But even for this, I used a small piece of the pattern of the t-shirt. I started with the bodice of a princess dress, and then added the top part of the shirt on top of the bodice. The skirt is just a short circle skirt or a half circle skirt, doesn't really matter. And of course I added a collar. This is pretty bad drawing, but I hope it sort of made sense of how I constructed this costume and how I incorporated a piece of the t-shirt pattern. Moving on. I am currently working on a warrior version of Fawn from Tinkerbell. It's my own design, and I started by making the shirt longer. Then I just laid it on the floor, drew the shape of the skirt that I wanted, and cut it out. I added 1 sleeve, like my design, and at this moment I also already have the belt. So those were all the costumes that I have used this pattern for. I hope you found this video useful and that you now have some inspiration to go on about changing up your own patterns, and that it sort of gave you an idea of all the options one pattern can have, because sometimes there's a lot more to one basic pattern than you might think. So, thank you for watching and bye!